Hi, welcome to Laura's View and Tarot 2. I am so glad you're here. Today's date is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. In this video, we're going to look at some recent statements made by President Trump regarding the ongoing conflict between Russia and the Ukraine and just ask the tarot, can President Trump be perceived to be the instrument or deal maker that can help bring some peace between those two countries. And as I was thinking about this, I thought about, well, last month, traditionally, Trump has made some sympathetic comments towards Putin and Russia and their during this conflict. And Zelensky's visit to the White House shortly after his inauguration didn't go well. He was escorted out of the White House. And it seems to me that in order to be a deal maker, you have to look somewhat nonpartisan. And I'm thinking that these statements that we're seeing and hearing from Trump that seem to be now a little more negative towards Russia are part of that effort to make himself seem nonpartisan and truly be able to help negotiate a lasting end to that conflict or to be perceived at because, it may just all be it may all be part of the movie. So I'm definitely going to ask about the perception of. So as I ask this tarot question, now, if you haven't done any rabbit dives into the possibility that a lot of what we're told is happening now has already been over and done with, that or has been totally fabricated to start with, those might be some rabbit trails you want to go down. It's one of the reasons I have to carefully phrase the questions I pose to the universe. Okay, so let's look at some of those comments that have been made this week that seem to be a little not as sympathetic as in the past. First of all, after a significant aerial strike over the weekend by Russia into Ukraine, Trump called President Vladimir Putin absolutely crazy and accused him of playing with fire after that drone and missile strike. That marked a shift from his previously sympathetic stance toward Putin. He's also expressed some frustration with peace talks between those two countries, and he has stated that Putin's actions defied his ceasefire efforts, but also that Zelensky's statements were inflammatory. So both sides, he's just saying no side is blameless. There's also been some sanctions that are being considered as a result by Trump, as a result of this reported escalation of attacks, and that's a departure from his earlier promises of reduced sanctions to encourage peace. Then uh, I wanted to just ask the universe about this. Is Trump going to be able to be a deal maker here for what has so far been a deal breaker? Again, the perception of this. I think he's getting positioned to seem to effectively play that part. I'd like that to be the case because if there's even a small chance that this conflict continues and that there's collateral damage, innocent lives being caught up in the issue, we want we want that to end. I also wondered too, because alt media is reporting that those missile strikes and aerial attacks actually had a humanitarian motive, and that was to rescue some little ones and to stop some trafficking shenanigans. I think there may be something to that. Now, obviously, having direct intel and information, President Trump would be aware of that. It would be more than just chatter that's heard, as it is for me, for him. And so I think, like I said, I think there is a chance here that he is positioning himself to be the referee that gets her done. And whether it's the perception of or the reality of, I don't care as long as the eventuality is one of an end of conflict and the end of civilian casualties as a result of that conflict. So I'm going to switch the camera, let you watch me work with the cards, and we'll find out together if we're closing in on a perceived end of that conflict and if Trump will be able to be the effective deal maker for that. So, art of the deal, is it going to happen? Let's find out. So, the question we'd like to ask the universe respectfully, and we'd like to have this information to be received without any veiling or obscuring efforts that might have been done by outside sources. So, in other words, the information to be as clear and easily understood as it would have been um, immediately prior to any veiling or obscuring. We're asking if the perception of a lasting peace treaty is, and the referee for same is one that Trump is positioning himself to effectively play and to have that perception be seen. So, can Trump be the referee that is needed for these two and their long countries and their long-standing conflict, plus additional insights and information? We'll see what the perception is. Okay, we have the Page of Swords, the Ten of Wands, Death, Eight of Swords, the Devil. Interesting combination of cards here, isn't it? The Hermit and the Sun. Okay, now look, out of seven cards, we have four of them that are major arcanas. That's statistically extremely significant. And the energy and information that's given to us from those major arcana cards is pretty well set in stone. And let's take a look at what that is. First of all, we have the Page of Swords giving us a little nudge here that um, this is a card that involves in political reads truth and diplomacy. So again, I think we are getting already here a very firm answer that yes, he can play this part in tens or endings to end that conflict. The fact that it's been ongoing now for several years is indicated here with the death card because that's a long, slow change. Right now, the perception is things are at a stalemate. Those peace talks are not moving forward. Now let's look at the near future. That's when it gets interesting and it's solid major arcanas. We have the devil card, and he's so we got the long-standing conflict. We've got Trump positioning himself to be the diplomat and to bring some truth or the perception of an ending to that conflict. And right now, the perception is that things are at a stalemate. Okay, in the near future, the devil card's telling us, shenanigans abound and will continue to abound. And this is so this is for the near future. Just a nod to the fact that as we get to a successful end to this conflict, there are people that are still trying to extract their last bit of hush money, bribe money, etc. Pad those accounts with dollars they shouldn't have. Interesting here that the hermit showed up and he's not shining a light on this at all. He's just simply shining a light. And so that's just telling us that we have some very good energy that is working to, again, work together here to minimize the negative aspect here with the devil card. So we have the hermit card, which often speaks of divine and benevolent assistance, and then the sun card. And the sun card is talk, it's joy, it's success, it's safety for little ones, which is paramount to what's going on as far as that conflict is going, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's a pretty common consensus in alt media that one of the big issues with the Ukraine, besides the labs that are manufacturing things they shouldn't have, is safety of little ones. And that so many without consent have been removed from their families and, have suffered horribly as a result of that. So we got the joy and success card here. And that's what, again, whichever side is most interested in the well-being and safety of little ones is the one that the universe is going to be um, supporting as it should. Let's get a few more cards because with all these major arcanas, it's really interesting. So again, my curiosity was, can Trump do the deal? Right away, we're getting told, yeah, he can bring it to an ending. Absolutely. King of Cups, he's a deal maker. Another king, King of Pentacles. The emphasis on protection of innocent life with Six of Swords, and then the Two of Wands. So let's look at these last cards again. We're looking at the near future, insights, information. Again, a nod to the fact that Trump will be able to play or seem to be, the successful deal broker for peace in that region. And that this is interesting. He's got a concern here for some sovereignty. So he is not supporting the total reabsorption of Ukraine into Russia. That he's recognizing that there's some regions there that want some sovereignty and that should be allowed. So interesting there. But it does look like the border areas of Ukraine that touch on Russia, where there's been so much conflict. That doesn't seem to be part of what his concern is. He can understand why those citizens, after persecution and issues for over a decade, would welcome having some Big Brother protection. Absolutely. So, and to that end, we've got the Six of Swords that's telling us that, ultimately that we're going to be able to get those two countries into a place of less chaos, less conflict, more calm, moving on to a place that's much better and much safer for people to be living, working, and raising their families in. And that's good to see. So let's recap. In the last few days, President Trump has been making some statements. He actually said that Vladimir Putin was absolutely crazy because, in response to that increased aerial and drone and missile strikes that were done by Russia into Ukraine. The It's interesting that President Putin hasn't responded to that in any kind of an overt way. He's just kind of ignored it. Now, we also thought about how was it last month that Zelensky was escorted out of the White House because he was making some demands and just his behavior was not conducive to using that time wisely, and so he was escorted out. It seemed to me that President Trump now has to kind of seem to balance the scales to have that perception of non-bias. So I think that's part of the reasons we've got some statements coming out from him. And I just asked the tarot cards, is Trump going to be perceived as being the peacemaker, deal broker for those two countries? And is that we're getting positioned for? I was careful to ask the perception of, because I think it is very likely that, as with so many events in our complicated world, there's some fabrication going on, or we're getting told with a delayed response, things that have already been completed, we're not told about till after the fact. So I was asking about the perception so we get some accurate information. It was interesting. We had a lot of major arcana show up in the first 7 cards, the main part of the read. 4 of those cards were major arcanas, yet they constitute less than a quarter of the deck. So it was interesting that there was some really emphatic response from the cards. Now, first of all, right away, we got he's going to be able to be the broker here because the Page of Swords in political reads often talks about diplomacy and truth. And uh, then it talked about the end of, with the 10 of Wands, giving us some information that there's an ending that's coming into play here for that conflict because Wands are actions. The recent past card was the first major arcana that showed up. The Death card in tarot often just talks about a long, slow change. And certainly it's been a long, slow conflict over there, spanning several years between Russia and Ukraine. And the perception right now is that things are at a stalemate. But looking ahead, despite the fact that there's still going to be some people trying to profit from siphoning off funds, getting a percentage, their cut, etc., there is going to be some peace had in the area, and with the main objective being safety for innocent life of all ages, but especially little ones. And that objective is supported, and we've got some divine and benevolent energy that says yes, human life, especially innocent human life, is a priority and needs to have that be prioritized. The little bolstering of that was with the Six of Swords, talking about going up from a place of chaos and harm and protecting innocent life in the process. So again, peace is coming to that region, and it's going to look like they move forward in a very uh, well-planned fashion. Also interesting, I got a nudge on this card. The King of Pentacles often speaks, first of all, there's pentacles are tangible assets. So that's going to be things like real estate, land issues. And this card often speaks of sovereignty. And the nudge I got that was intuitive on this was that President Trump um, doesn't really have an issue with the fact that Russia would like to have more direct oversight of some of the regions that currently seem to be on the border of Ukraine and Russia, but total absorption, no. As you get farther away onto the other side of Ukraine, those people may indeed choose not to be too closely aligned with their Russian neighbors, and I think President Trump feels that that should be honored. So where those lines are going to be drawn aren't exact, but they're not going to be all of one or none of one. It's going to be somewhere down the middle there. And again, the perception of an end to the conflicts and in that region, and President Trump having a big part to play in that is seems to be valid and will play out in time. So we'll see in our real-time play out of what may have already happened or been to some extent fabricated all along. Depends on how many rabbit trails and which ones you travel down. It does look like even the perception of conflict in that region is coming to an end, and that is a good thing. So that's it for this video and our exploration of a current event using some data and then some curiosity and tarot cards, combining them all together and getting an answer that might not have been as readily available if we only used data. Thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like to receive it, I send you love, light, and I wish you everything bright. Bye.